In terms of our climate, Michigan and the Great Lakes region they've become warmer and wetter over the last few decades. And in general, that is the tendency or the trend projected for at least the near-term future. So it's consistent with where we've been. The wetter is probably the more significant of these two. I would argue that might be the most significant climatic trend that we have here in the state. We've added 10 to 15% more annual precipitation in the last 20 to 30 years than used to be the case. So fairly noticeable, and we've had many examples of that recently that underscore that long-term trend. As we see more precipitation, it's occurring both because we have more wet days than we used to, but also more extreme events and more precipitation or rain or snow per event. Both of those things are increasing with time, but especially those heavy events, 2, 3, 4 inch type events are more frequent than they've been in the past. And of course, that's many times a problem. We just have too much water and too little time for it to run off. So flooding is arguably the biggest challenge that we face with this trend in economic impact and in a practical sense too. So it's a wide spectrum, but that one, the risk of flooding is up near the top of the list, I would say, if not the top of the list. We've seen, depending on location, somewhere on the order of about a 2 degrees Fahrenheit increase in mean temperatures over the last few decades. Since about really the 1980 is when we started to see a larger change. It's not symmetrical during the year. There's been more warming during the winter, in the spring, and the fall. There's also been warming in summer, but it's been less pronounced. And at nighttime. Our nighttime temperatures are increasing more rapidly than our daytime temperatures on average. It doesn't mean we won't have we've had a couple of severe winters this last decade, of course, to remind us, but we've also had some unusually mild winters at the same time. Lake levels, of course, are a response to the water coming in from precipitation and then what runs off in the basement and then what's lost through evaporation, and that balance is where we get the water levels. And what we've seen, especially over the last decade, is a lot of water coming in and less going out. Those are some of the really cold winters that we had. There was a lot of ice on the lake, at least for that particular winter, which inhibits or some cases prevents evaporation or loss. And so with the greatest example of that was end of the winter of 2013-14, when lake levels were at or near record lows at the end of the year, and they rose quickly to average or even above average levels just within a few months because of a very wet, snowy, and very cold, severe winter where there was much ice on the lakes and the lakes responded. And we've actually even increased beyond that now, and as you mentioned, at or near record levels, at least for the time of the year. And we typically, for the Michigan Huron system, we typically don't see our peaks until later on, so there's a possibility we could be flirting with all-time records as well. The outlook for the next few months is maybe wetter than normal as well. So it's certainly a possibility they could get even higher. The variability, and that is again these long-term trends. If they're slow and stable, it's less noticeable or less impactful. But when we see changes so dramatic in such a short period of time, it's much more difficult to deal with. And we went from dredging, paying large dollars, and there are all sorts of problems associated with low levels and taking freight off of freighters or cargo off of freighters so that they wouldn't take as much water, to now the excess, and we have shore erosion and many problems associated with too much water. And it's that variability that is really, I think, of greatest concern, or at least long term, I think that may be the biggest issue.